Yeah. What's up? Whoa. Turn this down. What's up, everybody? I kind of got a new setup here, so I'm trying to get all these technologies to work together. And I didn't realize that my camera was so far over. All right, let me move this over. Oh my gosh, get over here. Technologies, man, technologies. What's up, everybody? This thing is still off. Okay, but it'll probably be off when I start drawing. I got my little my drawing monitor in a different spot now, so I hope you people can hear me. Let me know if you can hear me. Let's see here. I was outside with the kids, and I couldn't get them to come inside. I was like, listen, I got to do my live tonight for all the peoples. I got to get in and do my stuff. And so I had to rush in here and try to get all this stuff working. But I think we're good. Can all you guys hear me? Yes? Awesome. I know that when I'm in like this mode and when I would change, my voice would go really soft and the volume would get really soft, but I think I got that fixed. Okay. Sweet. Awesome. Looks like you can hear me. So I hope everybody's doing good. I hope everybody's had a good week. I hope everybody's excited about a new week. I'm excited about a new week, new beginnings, whatever. Tonight, I'm kind of picking up where I left off last week with the overbite deck. I was doing the Jack of... It was either Jack of Spades or the Jack of Clubs. I think it's a Jack of Clubs. Let me think. And tonight, we are going to continue with that Jack of Clubs. And so last week, if you were here last week, you will remember that I did the line drawing of the monster that had like the floating eyeballs, and he had like a pickle for a brain. Yes, I know it's weird. A pickle for a brain. And he had like this glass dome that was like a pickle jar. Anyways, the only thing that I've done between then and now is I put, let me change my screen mode here to design mode. Okay. The only thing that I've done differently, let me turn this thing on real quick. Sorry. The only thing I've done differently, as you can see, is I added a base color layer to the Jack. And tonight, I'm going to kind of show you my process. I'm going to pick up where I left off, and I'm going to show you my process of kind of like how I color these, this style of illustration. It's a very simple process, simple technique. It's very intuitive. I think it's very easy to do. It's very relaxing for me to do because it's easy, I think. I've been doing this kind of technique for a long time. But anyways, that's kind of where I picked off. I went ahead, and the reason why I did all the coloring first, the blocking and the colorings, just because that's the first part of this process, and it's pretty boring. It's just me coloring solid colors. So I'm going to pick up to where once I got the base color done, I just start coloring. I've got a new setup. I got my monitors in a different little spot. I wanted to try to be able to see the chat a little bit easier when I'm doing these. And also got like a new monitor. And so I'm trying to work with that. But it's much easier now for me to see the chat. So if you have a question, ask it. And I'll try to get to it. All right, let me just make sure everything's good to go. I'm still trying to get used to this new setup that I've got, but I think it's going to be good. All right, let's see here. So the first thing I do after I put in this base layer is get my microphone over here a little bit further. Move over just a little bit because I can't reach this mic far enough. I'm sorry, people. I should have been more responsible and set up earlier. There we go. I think that's better. Now my microphone is good. Okay, Golly, what is this, amateur hour? Okay. The first thing I do when I'm doing this is, it's a very simple process. I put a base layer of color, like you see here. And then once I do the base layer color, I will do what I call a shadow layer. And it's basically me roughing in a shadow layer. And then I come back, and then I come back after the shadow layer, and then I do a highlight layer. So it's basically a base layer, a shadow layer, a highlight layer. And then once I've done both the shadow layer and the highlight layer, I go in and just kind of push and pull the paint or the pigment, or it's not even paint or pigments. It's a computer. I'll just blur the edges of my shadows, and then I'll just kind of go back and finesse it. And that's really about it. It's a super simple process, and I like it. I'm just painting in Photoshop, and I don't use any special brushes for this. I just use a hard round brush. Let me see here. I just use a hard round brush. Nothing special. Just get everything set up. So I'll make a new layer here, put it on multiply. And then basically what I do is I just come in here and I will select, and then I will just start painting. I will pick, let me see what's going on here. Why are we not seeing it? Multiply. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'm going to have to tweak this setup because I can't see my keyboard. And that's going to be, maybe I can use this little thing here. We'll see. I'm going to fumble around with it. So basically, I'm just going to go in here and roughly knock in just some, whoa, relax, some shadows here. And do it very quickly. And I'm not worried about accuracy. Well, I am kind of worried. I mean, I want to pay attention to like the form and everything, but all I'm doing right now is just picking a light source, which I'm going to pick the light source up in the top top right-hand corner. And I'll just pick a light source, and then I will just paint in shadows, just a kind of a base shadow layer according to that light source. Right now I'm painting a gray color, and the way that I work is I will paint this gray color over the top of everything that's kind of a gray material. Like I won't paint this gray shadow layer over the yellow objects because the transfer mode that it's on in Photoshop will not interact well with the yellow. I'll pick a different color for the yellow. So basically, I'm just going in here and roughing in these shadows where those shadows would be. I'm not too worried about it looking nice at this point, because when I go back on the second pass, then I will be able to kind of like blur the edges, tighten anything up that I need to tighten up. I'm just trying to block in the shapes. You know, put a little happy shadows in here, over here. Doo-doo-doo. And I also get nervous when I do this in front of people. So I tend to work faster than I normally do when I'm doing this. Yeah, then I'm gonna have to tweak this setup because I'm having to like bend back and can't see my keyboard. I'm gonna have this little ridge right here will have a shadow on it. And then we'll start there, coming back over here. This will have a shadow down here. This will cast a shadow right there. And then this arm will have a shadow coming over here. All this will be dark in shadow. Let's see. I think I had this set up. Yeah, I had this set up. Okay. This will all be dark in shadow over here. I think one of these is eraser. I'm like This whole new setup I have to get used to. All my hotkeys are different, and my interface is a little bit different. But I like it. I like this new monitor. It's really nice. My old monitor was just getting, it was like 7 years old, and it was beginning to get laggy and quirky. All right. All right, so I'm going to keep knocking in the shadows here. I'm gonna steer clear of that yellow. I mean, I could probably do it. I mean, it doesn't look too bad. Sometimes when you yellow and red are the hardest colors to kind of paint. Even like with actual pigment paint, like real paint, red and yellow are really hard to paint and like to create like the tints, tones, and shades of those colors is really kind of hard. And it's the same thing with a computer. For some reason, it's just red, especially red. Red is definitely the hardest. The way that red interacts with other colors can just go, it can look real muddy really quick. And so I'm going to put a little cast shadow under these fingers like this. Put this part of the finger in shadow. Little cast shadow. All this is going to be in shadow underneath here. Like that. Another little cast shadow here. And it bleeds in the worst. All right. This one is going to kind of be like this. Little cast shadow on this thumb. Some cast shadow behind these little knuckle hinges or whatever they are. It's all make-believe, people. It's all make-believe. Little happy shadow. Put a little happy shadow in here. I used to watch Bob Ross with a vengeance when I was a kid. And as you can see, I'm not trying to, I don't want to like overwork it. Because I have learned that when you spend too much time on something like this, you end up overworking it. And it's usually much more fresh and even more accurate sometimes when you just block them in. Block them in quick and move on. Okay. See, this is going to be in shadow here, and then it's going to cast a shadow like this. Maybe like that. I'm not casting photons or anything. It's not like super accurate. It's just kind of my approximation of what this is going to look like. Cast shadow on these little spikes. Well, this is not a cast shadow. This is a shadow. Cast shadow is this. When it's actually casting, when it's blocking the light rays from something else. See. All right. Getting there. Getting pretty close. This is maybe in shadow here. Let's do a little bit over here. Over here. A little bit there. I guess the main thing that I'm looking at, I'm just trying to stay inside the lines. If I go, if I'm messy within the lines, it's all right. I'll be able to pull that and fix that later. All right. Now, I kind of have to treat this head part differently because I have this different layer on top, this green layer that kind of represents the pickle juice. But let's see how it interacts. So I'm going to do the same thing. Yeah, it's going to be fine. So I'm going to do the same thing where I'll just paint in the cast shadow or the shadow layer, what I call the shadow layer over here. Like that. Yep, that's good. Little shadow down here. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, it's going to work. It's going to work good. A lot of this, I'm not going to put too much, like technically this, all this teeth should be in shadow, but I don't want to take away too much from that kind of tooth, that yellow tooth color. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit here. Use my artistic license a little bit here. There we go. Put this part, there we go. This back part, we'll definitely put this in shadow just to help sell that depth. Whoa. What happened? There we go. Put some on these eyeballs. I took out the brain stem and stuff. I felt like, because I took out the brain itself and made it a pickle because I thought that was funny. And so I took out the brain stem and the little sinew and stuff that was connecting to the eyeballs. And I also thought it was just a little bit noisy and it was distracting me. So I took it out because why not? All right, I'm going to back up. Let me see here. A little on these guys down here. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and check just to see. So I can just flip this on and off, and you can kind of see just the amount, just quickly hitting that shadow layer, how much depth that adds to the image. Just hitting that one shadow layer. All right, so now, Logan, I am drawing the Halloween deck called, it's the October deck for my, let me see here. I'm reading other questions. I was getting distracted. I'm sorry. I'm drawing the card from the October deck for my King's Wild Short subscription. The deck is called Overbite. I'm sorry, I didn't make an announcement about this, B-Dog. I'm sorry. I was outside with my kids all day, getting a sunburn and jumping on the trampoline and getting exhausted and reminding myself that I'm not as young as I used to be. And I know that I'm going to be very, very sore tomorrow because I was jumping on the trampoline and doing slip and slide with my kids. And I'm sorry I didn't make the announcement. All right, so once I have done what I call the shadow layer, then I'll do the highlight layer. And I'm only just painting one side because then I can just duplicate it over and to the other side. So I'm just going to make a new layer and put it on overlay. And I usually just use white on overlay. And then I basically do the opposite thing. I will just paint a white highlight layer because I kind of chose where I wanted my light source, and the light source is kind of coming. Well, actually, I'm going to change. Let's see here. I need to add some more shadow over here if my light source is coming from the top right. I don't want to use that much artistic license. But if I add this big shadow over here, it's going to really help make this robot or robot monster cyborg Borg thing, whatever he is. It's going to definitely make him feel a little bit more three-dimensional. Yep, that's what I wanted. There we go. Okay, so I got me a new layer. This is going to be my highlight layer. I'm going to use white, and then my light source is roughly coming from the top right-hand corner of my image. And so now I'm just going to go back and either correct. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. Now I'm just going to go back and start painting in a highlight layer. And usually it's pretty bright once I get it started, and then I'll just tone it back. And with the highlight layer, the highlight layer is even more kind of rough. Let me bring down the opacity a little bit. It's even more rough than the shadow layer. So like right here, this shadow is definitely in the wrong spot. So I'm going to kind of erase this. I need a hard-edged eraser though. Somebody was asking about a printer. Let me see here what that question was. I use a Canon Pixma Pro. I think it's a 100 or something to do all my prototype stuff with. However, I'm getting a large format printer very soon, within the next month or so. I'm getting a large format printer, and I'm going to start doing prints. It's going to be awesome. We're going to start doing limited edition prints of stuff. People have been asking for me to do prints of different artwork, and we gonna do it. So at this point, I'm just drawing just a simple highlight on different stuff. I can be very, very rough and quick with it. That's okay, because I will come back in a little bit and blur it all out and kind of finesse it to where it needs to go. These bubbles, this highlight. And I'm gonna approach the glass itself a little bit differently, because the light kind of reacts a little bit differently than normal stuff when you're talking about glass and stuff. So I'll go back and do the glass later towards the end. Oh, I don't want to paint on that part because I need to learn to use this thing up here. I'm just talking to myself, learning how to use this new setup I got here. I forgot to put my stream on ultra low latency. And so I have a real long delay. So I'm trying to get used to that as well than I normally do. Like the sound effects. Excuse me. I need to put some. Yeah, that's good. Let's see. And something else you have to realize, I'm thinking about this. I think a lot of card designers, especially like new card designers, you really, and this goes with anything, especially anything that has to do with artwork that you're doing that is meant to be used in like packaging that is going to end up being printed somehow. You really have to think about what your art is going to look like at size. And what I mean by at size, I mean a playing card is 2.33, like 2.337 inches tall. No, 3 point, what is it? I can't remember. It's like 2.3 wide by 3.3 tall. And so you have to realize that you have to create the artwork with that in mind, because I think a lot of new artists will spend way too much time on stuff that is not going to matter, and it's also not going to be able to be read at print size. And I learned that too as well, because I would put so much detail in a lot of stuff, and then I would get the final printed card, and you just lose like 90% of all that detail. Only, and it had nothing to do with the art not being cool or good or whatever, but it had everything to do with it was just too small. So like I work, let's see what this is. I work huge. This file is 8 inches wide by 10 inches tall at 600 DPI. So it is way bigger than an actual playing card. And I do that only because I want to be able to have the flexibility to make prints and stuff of my art, or put things, or use my playing card art in different forms later on. And so I make them big. But if I click this, let's see, I'm going to save this so when my computer crashes, I don't lose it. First of all, so if I were to make this actual playing card size, let's see here. I'm going to take 8, so it's the width is 3.47, and that's not a playing card size. That's the size of the card itself with the die line and everything. If I make this, if I shrink this to playing card size, and this is what I'll do before I send it off to the printer, I'll shrink it to playing card size. So this is playing card size, but it's double resolution. So it's twice as big as what it should be. So then I can go take this from 600 DPI to 300 DPI, because that's as high as the DPI that you're gonna print with. So I can shrink it even further. And so not only is the quality, like this is what it will be printed at on a playing card. And so you can clearly see that even this is way less detailed than what you guys are watching me do. But that's the reality. This is what it's going to be printed at, because I can't print it at any higher resolution. And so even the act of me like shrinking it like does a lot of that kind of work for me. And so that's why just blocking in stuff is so important. And then I go one step further. If I click view print size, it's usually about 33%. So if I click, I got a playing card right here beside me. And I guess I just want to do this. I know that you can't see the playing card, but it's just more of a lesson than anything. I can actually put a playing card up on my screen. I can put a playing card up on my screen. And so what you're seeing now on your screen, watching this YouTube live, this image of this card is exactly the same size in front of me on my computer screen as an actual playing card. Okay, I have a big 4K monitor, so that's probably why it seems really small on in this. But this is what the playing card size is. And so when I say new artists spend way too much time on detail, this is what I mean. Because this is as big. Now you can have to imagine if you were sitting in my computer and looking at this on my monitor. This is as big as big as the art's going to get. So even a lot of the work that I'm doing on this is going to get lost. And so you have to design. I'm going to just back up here. You have to design your artwork with the intent and knowing the final resolution. And that's why you can like look at this and like a lot of people say, well, that's so rough. And so, it looks so rough and that kind of thing. But it's like, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the final product. And the final product is going to be about 2.5 inches wide by 3.5 inches tall. And that's all you're going to get. So I'm going to make a new layer on top of my pickle jar and put that on overlay. And then I'm just going to paint this really big swath highlight like this. Okay. And then I'll come and fiddle with it a little bit. Okay. So I can zoom out a little bit and I'll show you. I'm going to put these. Yeah, I'm going to put these new layers in a group and I can show you. Let me put this, well, it'll take the green out. But if I just zoom out and I turn on and off, I'll turn on and off the layers that I've just done, the shadow layer, the highlight layer. And you can see, as I turn them on and off, you can see how much depth that those simple blocked in shadows and blocked in highlights, like you can see the difference that makes. So there we go. Now from there, now what I do is with this project specifically, I'm going to use my smudge tool. And I've got a special smudge brush that I've been using. Let me see here. Let me find it. It's not like a regular, it's not just like a feathered brush, but it's got like these, I don't know how to explain it. It's like little dots. And what it ends up doing is it ends up creating kind of like almost like a paintbrush feel to it. And I just like this is it right here. No. Let me see. Here it is, right here. That's it. Just make sure. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to turn my strength up a bit on my smudge tool. And so now what I'm doing is I'm basically just going back, because I use a hard brush on everything of this kind of stuff. And that's just the way I work. That's the way I like to do it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and just blur the edges to kind of create that kind of like form on the objects. And it's just me using this smudge tool really quickly. And like I said, you got to be able to not be too, anal about it, and like not overwork it. Just quickly do your thing and create a method to the madness. And I'm not worried about, like, when I'm smudging this, I'll try to smudge it in the direction of the form, but then I'll just blur it. And the way I'm blurring this is just by pushing and pulling the colors that I've put on the picture. And a lot of this is just my, classical art training coming through, because this is the same exact way that I paint, especially when I'm like blurring edges. I'll just go through and blur the edges, because the difference between, the biggest difference between a amateur painter, and this can be painter of canvas and actual paint, and also the difference between a amateur and pro painter, even on digital. Let me just paint this shadow that I forgot down here. Did I? Let's see. No, it's there. One of the biggest differences in a amateur painter, whether it's digital or on a canvas, is how they deal with edges. Because really, edge form and edges, and how you deal with edges, is how you create the realism a lot of times. And when I say realism, don't get realism confused with like photorealistic, because you can have a very impressionistic style painting and it have a lot of realism. But I cannot stress enough how important it is when you're doing this kind of stuff to always work with the final size in mind, because if I just keep doing this and keep zooming out and making that, I got my playing card, I can just keep zooming out and put my playing card on there right next to it to judge size. To make sure I'm just keeping track of my how big it's going to be in the end on a playing card. Let's see, got a few questions. Let me see here. B-Dog asks, what are the blue dotted lines used during printing? So the way this works is this outer line, that's a rectangle box, this outer line is the art bleed line. So basically, that's the line that you have to have your art go to because that's the bleed line. And then this dark, solid, round-cornered rectangle, that's the actual die line, the cut line. So that's the actual card itself. The first dotted line is what you would call, people sometimes call it the copy safe or the title safe. And that's basically you can't go outside of that. Or if you do go outside of that, they will give you a warning and say, we can't guarantee that this is not going to get cut off. And so they just have to do that. But if you go outside that second line and it's United States Playing Card Company printing, they're like, you got to move that in because we can't register it anyways. And then the second inner line is basically like you want to have all of your important information inside that line because it has more to do with yeah. So that's what those lines are. Basically, stay inside the dotted lines. And the solid line is the cut line. So back to blurring. Now, some of these lines don't need to be blurred as much as others. Anytime you have a cast shadow, the cast shadow will get more focused. And what I mean by focused is when you have a cast shadow, the edge of that cast shadow will be sharper the closer it gets to the object that is creating the shadow. So like technically, if you look at one of these spikes, as the shadow nears the way it should be in real life, like if I was trying to make this photorealistic and it was going to be huge, the way that shadows really work is the closer the shadow gets to the edge of this, gets close to the edge of this. I got to turn that off. That thing is going to annoy me. What happened? Oh, no. I clicked some hotkey. I got this new thing. Now I can't get it off. Oh, no. What happened? Okay, good. So the way it works is the closer this cast shadow gets to the object that is creating the shadow, which is this spike, oh my goodness gracious, what key am I pressing to turn that on? That's annoying. The closer it gets to this spike that's creating the, now it doesn't even work. Oh, I'm on the wrong layer. It's like I've never done this before. And so see what I'm doing by erasing the shadow, and I'm sharpening that focus of that shadow as it gets closer to that shadow, the thing that's making the shadow. So it gets really sharp, and then as it gets further away, I can blur it even more. That's the way real shadows work. Am I doing that for this? Not really. Because when I put this at size, you're not going to know that shadow is tight or not. So it's just kind of like one of those pick your battle type things. Like I said, you always want to draw with the final print size in mind. Because if you're overdrawing, if you're like me and you're a professional artist and you make money by drawing, your time is important. And if you're overdrawing on stuff that's not going to be seen or not really, you're not going to be able to see, then you're really wasting time and you're wasting your money because you should be using that time. You should be using that time wisely. And if you're overworking it, then you're just wasting time and you're wasting your money because you could be working on something else and actually making money that's going to be actually seen. What is that? I got so many hotkey buttons I got to turn off that I don't know what's going on. Now, like in here, I'll probably do this as an example. Like I'll turn the eraser on and then I'll come in here and then I'll sharpen this up just a little bit. Just because that's going to be right underneath that thing. All right, let's see here. Let's blur this. I always get talking on a soapbox and then forget what I'm doing. And also, like, another reason why I'm really rough with this is because, you know, in my head, this character, this robot is not going to be, I mean, it's going to be, all the metal is not going to be pristine. I can't even know how to say it. It's going to have been through a lot, and it's not going to be perfect, and the metal's going to be scratched up, and I'm going to add scratches and stuff in just a little bit. Blur that up a little bit more. Let me just check. Hit some of these on the teeth. Good. Do this eye. I remember when I was a kid and I would draw. I mean, not a kid. I mean, heck, I do it now. Just did it. I do all kinds of sound effects when I'm painting or doing this kind of stuff. Stupid, I don't draw a bunch of stuff with lasers and stuff. All right, I'm just going to check to make sure that I've got all my little lines blurred that I want blurred. Looks good. Now I'm going to go to my highlight layer and do the same thing. I'm just going to blur those edges. I'm just going to blur those edges of the highlight layer. Oh, missed one right there. But that's okay. I'll usually miss it and then come back and just knock it while once I catch it. There's another one I missed right there. Good. I'll blur that a little bit more right there. Looking good. Looking good. Need a little bit more on that. I feel like I'm just going to hit that a little bit more. Yep. And then I'm going to just go back and blur it. Get this little edge here. And so when I can, like right here, I kind of try to blur it in the direction as if it was on the surface. And so like I'm trying to curve this blur. But obviously I'm going to go back and just kind of break it up like this. But that'll help that highlight kind of match the shape of that object. Nose itches. I need to put a shadow layer on this cork. Let me do that right quick while I'm thinking about it. A little bit darker, please, Jackson. A little bit darker so we can actually see it. That would be good. Good. Let's blur it. Perfect. All right, let's see here. What am I missing? Got this over here. Blur that. Hit that right there. Looking good. Blur this edge. I talked about, I was with, anytime I do this, because I'm trying to think how I want to say this. When I do so many different styles and themes that a lot of my illustrations look very, very different in terms of like style. And anytime I'm doing a different style, I want to put some more on here. Anytime I'm doing a different style, it's always, my process is I always try to create a method of how I'm doing the illustrations. That way, it's not like I'm just doing one illustration. I'm doing a whole deck of cards that I want to feel like everything goes together. And so part of making that work is creating a method by which I create all the artwork. And method, by what I mean by method is like what I'm showing you here is I have a base layer. I drew the black line drawing, then I do a base layer of color, solid color, and then I come back and I do a shadow layer, a highlight layer, and then I do the finishing touches. And basically that kind of gives myself kind of this roadmap of a process. That way, when I'm, however, if a deck takes me 2 weeks to do or 3 weeks to do, no matter how long it takes me to do, if I've got a good process, then the cohesiveness of the art and the style will remain true throughout the project. I missed all these shadow layers on these spikes, so I'll need to go back and blur those. But I'll go ahead and knock out the highlights while I'm here. Like that. Just go to multiply layer, blur these shadow layers. The Joy of Painting with Jackson Robinson. I need me like a sweet, I need to do like 4:3 aspect ratio, look like an old TV, and then like have me a sweet kind of 80s intro. The Joy of Painting with Jackson Robinson. Yeah, I'm going to put a little happy tree here, little happy shadow, do a little blur with my my number 4 brush. I'm just going to zoom out here, always zooming out, making sure, checking my image. I'm going to zoom out to playing card size. Put my playing card up next to my monitor. Just, see, I got the card right here. Put it right there on the next to the monitor. Just to check the size. Make sure everything reads. Looking good. All right, I'm going to save this. So when my computer crashes, because it will, because it always does, don't ever think twice. So at this point, I've got the highlight layer, I've got the shadow layer, I've got the highlight layer. And now from this point on, now I'm going to do a little bit of trickery and painting on the glass pickle jarred head. But once I've done that, I'm pretty close to being finished. And basically the rest of it is just me like adding texture, adding some like icing on the top of the cake, and then doing some just like grunging up to make it look a little bit kind of weathered. So yeah. So let me paint this pickle jar head. So I've got this layer right here. I'm going to make me a new layer, multiply. Now I am going to use a feathered soft edge brush to do this. So I'm going to select me this green color here, and then I'm going to come down in tone a little bit, or shade actually. It's on multiply. We'll give that a try. I'm going to bring my flow way down to like, let's see, 17%. I've got my pickle jar selected, and so I'm just going to paint. Same process really as I did before, but I just kind of have to approach it differently because it's transparent, and it kind of reflects the light a little bit differently through the glass. So I'm going to put in a shadow layer, and then I'm going to put a highlight layer. I've kind of already have a highlight layer, but that's okay. So I'm going to paint a shadow layer on this side, laver, a shadow laver, right in here on this side. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Not work too much. Now I'm going to go back, deselect. I'm going to go back on this edge. Like if this was a solid form, like a piece of metal or something else that was not transparent, I could leave the shadow layer like this where the shadow goes all the way on the back. Now, you will have reflected light, and we'll get to the reflected light and the bounce light in just a second. And the bounce light and reflected light on different metal surfaces is what I'm talking about, is like that kind of icing on the cake. But with this, I'm going to erase some of the shadow. Let's make this not all the way soft, but not all the way hard. And then I'm going to erase just a little bit off that edge, just like this. And that's going to help sell the fact that this is a round object and give it a little transparency. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over it with a kind of another green layer on top, because the way that water works, or liquid inside of a glass object, as the water gets closer to the edges, the light gets refracted more. Now I'm not going to distort anything. That would be way too much work for what you wouldn't see anyways. But I do want to add variations in the color, the saturation of the color. So the closer it gets to the edge, the more. I'm just going to add more green to it. It's basically the simple way of saying it. So I'm going to get my eyedrop here. I'm going to select this green, this pickle, because we are in this pickle juice. And then we're just going to try overlay to begin with. Make sure my brush is really. So I'm just going to add a little bit of color right here. See, I don't like how it reacts with that white layer. So I'm just going to add it on this side, like this. Maybe a little bit more here. Bring down the opacity. That feels good. Now I'm going to go to this white layer, that white strip down the center, and I'm just going to blur that edge. Now this is glass, and so this would be considered a specular highlight, and a specular highlight is nothing more than like when you see somebody's eye and you see that little white speck in someone's eye, or if you see a glass, any kind of reflective surface is going to have a specular highlight. And a specular highlight is nothing more than the reflection of the light source. And so you'd have to think that the thing that's making this specular highlight is just some light source. But because I'm blurring this big swath of white right here, and I can turn it off and on, because I'm blurring this, I'm now making this not a specular highlight. Because the more glossy a surface, or the more smooth or reflective a surface, the more tighter the edge of the specular highlight. So like if you look at water, it's a mirror image, and so all the specular highlights and reflections are super tight. And the more matte or rough an object, the more diffuse or blurry the specular highlights are going to be. And you can even see here this little banana-shaped object. Like I'm going to erase that, because that's actually me drawing with a black line the specular highlight. And so I'm just going to erase that, because I'm about to paint that in. I'm actually going to paint that in with white. And now I got to erase it from the other side here. Okay. Good. Now I'm going to, I got that white. Okay, there's that. Okay, I want to erase this little white part I've got here. All right. Now I'm going to add the specular highlight. And to do that, I'm just going to paint very similar to what I was just doing. I'm going to paint white right on the top. I'm going to make sure my flow is all the way up to 100. If I can grab it, there we go. And I need to make sure that my brush is a hard-edged brush, which it's not at the moment. Now, there's two ways I could do this. I could just paint it in like this. Like that. I put that on overlay. Yeah, that works for me. And then there may be a specular highlight on this back edge, but I don't want to overdo it. Like I said, you got to think about the final print size. Oh my God, I got to figure out how to turn that off. That's annoying. I'm going to add some highlight to this top layer, the top surface of this water. All right. Now, okay, I feel really good about this. I'm going to come back in just to bring out his eyes and his mouth a little bit more. I'm just going to add just a little bit of a white layer. I'll bring it back. Don't get too scared, people. I'm just going to paint a white layer over the top of his mouth and his eyeballs. And then I'll bring it back just to tone it down a little bit. But I just want these to pop a little bit more than they are. And I'm going to do it in these bubbles too. Just a little bit. Then I can bring down the opacity a little bit. And see, that'll just make them pop a little bit more, but not. Yeah, that's good. Now, okay, so I've got all my base layer painting done. Is it almost 10? Good, we're doing good. There's really not that much more left. So basically from here on out, with this style, this is not the same with everything that I do. It really depends on the style. But with this style of kind of illustration, this is 90% of the work done. And from this point on, it's basically just me putting like little finishing touches on it to give it just a little bit more, you know? And so what I'm going to do is very similar to what I did with the painting of the shadow layer and the highlight layer. I'm going to have a shadow and a highlight layer of what I call edges. So like anything that has an edge, I'll paint a little white line on it, just barely touching it with a white line. And it's probably just a lot easier for me to just shut up and do it than to try to explain it. So like a good example is like this part right here. You have all these little edges of this metal. They're going to catch the light a little bit differently. Some are going to have highlights on the edges, and it's going to kind of look beveled and embossed. So but before I do that, I'm just going to make sure I blur this one on his tooth that I'm catching here. This highlight layer that I see on his tooth. What is that? Oh, that's that thing I put on top. Yeah, okay. It just was bothering me, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to make a new layer, put it on overlay, and this will be my highlight edge layer. I'm going to make sure I have my hard brush. It's good. It's all hard. And so now what I'm going to do is anywhere there where there's an edge that's facing the light source, I'm going to just draw a little white line just like this. Just hitting that top edge. And it may not seem like much, but it's going to add a lot in the end. Okay. And I don't have to do with everything. I'm just going to choose a few things to do it on. So I'm going to add some texture to this pickle by using those little lines. Maybe a little bump there. These types of things, I could add a little bit of a highlight here and then a little bit here on this back edge. The top of these fingers, the top edge of these hinges. And you have to realize that zoomed in, like this looks like junk. I mean, it's like really rough and really loose. But you know what? It doesn't matter Because when I zoom out, when I zoom out to card size, which that's about card size, your brain puts everything together, and your brain says that stuff looks dialed in and good and tight. That's what it does. That's what your brain does. And that's why I say it's so important not to overwork stuff, because just let the viewer's brain do most of the work. So like with this, why I hate that hotkey, whatever that is, and it's driving me crazy. What are you doing? I'm going to reinforce this kind of ribbed shape by just hitting each one of these little ribs with the highlight. And I'll probably end up going back and adjusting the opacity of this layer so that, that's going to go out, and then I'm going to come back up here top and just be mindful of where that light source is. And then see how I'm switching it, because it's going to be those edges facing the light source. There we go. There we go. A little bit of an edge there. Top edge here, a little bit. Boom, 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 boom. So I'm going to have something here. Little something, something. This bottom edge, like when I did these little stripes, I was thinking like these are little different ring sections of metal or something. Looking good. There we go. Hit this outer edge right there. Shabam. The power of the highlighting edge. Down there. Don't worry about that. That's going to get painted when I flip it. Looking good. All that's going to get painted when I flip it. So I don't need to paint it twice. That's for show. Good. Let's do a little line on this. Now here's a good example. Like this little line right here that I've put. That's kind of like a scratch. And so I'm going to put a highlight on the bottom edge of that's facing the light source, just to reinforce that scratch. Good, good, good. Looking good. Just hitting everything that I want to hit. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to tell the story you want to tell, I guess. Always paint to size. Good. There. There. Now see this little thing right here? That was me drawing the highlight. And so I'm just going to erase that. I got to figure out what's making that hotkey go, because that's super annoying. Erase it from here as well. Go back. Come back to this layer. Okay. All right. Let me do some here. Reinforce these little rib shapes. Oh man. That's super annoying. As soon as I'm done tonight, I'm gonna figure out how to turn that hotkey off. All right, so now I've done, let's see here if I'm missing anything that I want to get. Yeah, let's get these over here. Let's get that. That's all good. Good. Looks good. All right. Oh, some stuff up here I could get. Let me see. Good. Good. Just looking at it a little bit here. Just zooming out. Taking a look. Look at everything. Feeling good about it. Just checking it. All right, I'm going to save this so when my computer crashes, and it will crash, that I don't lose my work. Okay, so at this point, I'm pretty close. I'm pretty close to being where I want to be. And so from now, what I'm going to do now, as you can kind of see here, let's see. I think I've got everything grouped. Yeah. So here's what it looked like before with the base color, with just the base colors when we started. Okay. And then here's what it looks like with all the stuff that we added. And we didn't really add that much to it. I can see a few things that I want to do. I want to add a kind of a highlight layer to that mace. And I'll show you what I'm talking about just to give it, it's a little flat right now, this part. And I want to, I'm going to beef it up a little bit. So I'm going to put a new layer on top, overlay. We'll use white. I'm going to hide my selection. And then basically I'm just going to paint a big white line right here. Just like that. And then I'm going to go back with my smudge tool. And I'm going to blur this edge. Like this. Oh, it did something weird. What have I done? That's all right. What is it doing here? It's got something going on. It's picking up something else. Okay. That's not acting like I want it to act for some reason. Let me do this. New layer. Overlay. Let me deselect. Let's do a soft brush. Let's blur that. Bring down my strength a little bit here. Too much. Yeah, there we go. I was doing something more. Now let's bring that down a little bit, and then let's add a little bit of white to this back edge as kind of a bounce light. And let's blur that. Good. Goody, goody, goody. And I'm just going to erase with a hard edge brush that white area that's in the spikes because it's not, it shouldn't be on there. So we got to erase it. Good. So now I can just zoom out a little bit and I can turn that on off and you can kind of see what I did. Just adding those little things. Now, I'm trying to decide. So what I'm going to do now is I got all this stuff grouped. That's the old one. I'm going to delete that layer. So there's all my painting. I'm going to delete this green. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply duplicate this group of all of the painting that I did. And then I'm going to rotate it around and flip it to the other side. So now I can put both of these layers in a group and kind of show you there's before and then after, before and after. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some texture to it because right now it's all very, I mean, I do have it on multiply, so you're getting the texture of the paper through the back. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to group the line drawing and the shading into one group. So that's now everything minus the line drawing because I don't want to mess with the line drawing. I'm going to duplicate that group just so I can merge it and kind of use it as a selection tool. I'm going to hide my selection. And then I'm basically going to create a new layer on top with using that same kind of method as I just was doing, where I have a shadow layer and a highlight layer. So I'm going to add texture, use the same way. I'm going to add a new layer on top on overlay transfer mode. And then this time I'm going to use a specialty brush, one of my mini brushes that I've been collecting over the years. I'm going to find one of these really fun ones that I use for like texture. I should organize my brushes better, but I don't know. I'm too lazy, so I don't do it. Let's see. That's a good one. Okay. So basically, I'm just going to come back, zoom. I'm going to be zoom out. I'm going to make my brush really big. That's on white. And I'm just going to lightly hit it in different places all over. I'm just tapping it. And you can kind of see it kind of gives like these kind of splotchy variations in the color. And when you zoom in, I mean, it may not look right when you zoom in, but the magic is it doesn't matter what it looks like when you're zoomed in. And if you're an artist, you need to get that out of your head. The only thing that matters is what it looks like at print. Now, I can bring the opacity down and play with it. That's fine. So I'm going to make a new layer on multiply. So this is kind of like my shadow layer. I'm going to pick kind of this grungy brown and do the same thing. I'm going to just tap it in different places and add me some texture. And what that's going to do is I can always bring it back. I can always hit Control Z if I don't like it, whatever. But these kind of like variations, I'm going to bring them back in opacity and tone it down. So now I can like bring that down in opacity now. It's going to add texture. It's going to add variation to colors. But now I've got so much more rich and interesting colors like all throughout here. So if I just take those two layers, if I took those two layers I just created and turn them off, I mean, just look how much more variation you have in the color and the texture of the form that you didn't have before. And I just used those two simple layers. So that's kind of that. Now at this point, I'm pretty close to being finished with what I want to do. And so now I'm going to start adding a little bit more kind of weathering. I can see my keyboard. So I'm going to take, here's my black line. So there, if I took the black line, you can see what I painted and without the black line. So I'm going to bring the black line down here. I'm going to take all my painting layer and my black line layer, and I'm going to group it. So that's basically all of that stuff. And it's also the spade indexes. And so now I'm going to group that. I'm going to save my file because my computer will crash, and I want to make sure I don't lose my work. I'm going to group all that so it's in one layer. And then now I can make a layer mask out of that. Oops. Make sure I have no selection when I make the layer mask. And then now what I can do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to add kind of like a speckled. I do this a lot. I just like the way it looks. It just kind of, it takes this pristine black line drawing that I've got and it kind of breaks it up a little bit. What is that? It kind of breaks it up a little bit. So I'm going to get a special brush that I've got for that. It's kind of like special. It's like a speckledy brushes Let me see. Let's see how this works. It's going to be really big. I need to get a big one here. See, that's too much. That's too much speckle. I'm not texturing a drywall here. Too much. Still too much. Let's go. Let's see what this is. See, that's a little closer. You can kind of see where it adds those speckles. But that's, like I said, at size, you're not going to be able to see that. You can kind of see it here in the J. You see in the J where I've got kind of like these speckles in the J? That's kind of what I'm talking about. It just kind of adds that. That's close, but still, I got all these different sizes too for different stuff. And it's basically just me. Let me see how that one works. It might be too much. Yeah, it's too much. I'm sorry, people. Let's see. That's specular regular. I want to do sparse small. Let's see if there's a sparse speckle sparse. I want fine grain. It's too much. Oh my gosh. You're just like choose one dense sparse. There we go. That's probably closer to what I want. And so with this is kind of the same thing. I'm just gonna, man, that hotkey gonna make me break something. And so kind of the same thing. It adds these little white speckles. Now from here, zoomed in, it may look really bad. And you'll be like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Robinson? But like I said, when you zoom this out, when you end up zooming this out, it's gonna look great. And I actually forgot one thing that I usually do. I usually do this kind of action script that I created that takes, sometimes when I'm painting, I'm never painting on the computer. But sometimes when I'm doing this, I use a hard edge brush for these line drawings that I do. And it always makes it look really surgical and stiff. And so what I'm going to do is go back into my drawing, and I'll leave this layer. I'll duplicate this layer. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run an action script that I create that I've got here. Pull it over here so I can see it. And what it does, and you'll see it run through the action, but you'll watch the black line drawing. What it's going to basically do is it's going to kind of distress the black line drawing and make it kind of distorted a little bit so it doesn't look so perfect and surgical, so that it looks like it's like printed on paper and kind of a thing. So let me just run this script here. So just watch the black line. It's got to run through the script, and I may have to tweak it a little bit. It's got to think. There we go. So distressing complete. So now if you look at the black line, let's zoom into it. You can see that it's kind of like, it's got a kind of a broken edge now. And if I make it invisible, here's the original. So here's the original black line, and you can see right here is a good example. Like it's super sharp, very surgical, very not fresh. And when I mean fresh, I just mean like it just is too stale. But now if I make that invisible and make the one that I change, now you can kind of see that it's kind of real gritty. It's got irregular edges. It looks more better, basically, is what I'm saying. It looks better. And like I said, you want to print these you want to design this stuff to size. And so you got to think about that. I want to go back. That's pretty neat. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. I want to go back into my mask here, and I want to I'm going to go ahead. I want to add a couple of bigger spots to these pips. Let's see here. Good. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I want. More better is awesome. Yeah, we want more better. We want more better. Neat is okay, and I appreciate the compliment, David. I appreciate it. but we want more, better, awesome. More, better. All right. So from there, I'm just going to check to see if everything, and it looks like I had a few things. Yeah, we're good. I'm just looking at it over here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and save this. I don't know if I'm going to open up the King of Spades because I have a border that goes around it. But I think that I was probably irresponsible in the way that I created the border. Let me see here. King's Wild Shorts, October, Overbite, open up the King of Spades. And like, I've tweaked a little bit. I've tweaked the process a little bit since I did the King of Spades, and I'll probably end up going. So like the King of Spades is very, very saturated, and I'm probably going to end up going back and fixing. Fixing? That's a word. That means change for people that are not from Texas. But I'm probably going to go back and change the King of Spades a little bit. But I'm going to pull this. That's all one layer, which is not good. But anyways, from here, you can see on this King of Spades that, let me see if I can get it in here. You can see on this King of Spades that I've got like this kind of green border and then this black border and then these lines in the background. I'm going to go back off, not on the live, but I'll go back through and add this kind of black border. Let me see if I can pull it. Let me see here. Yeah. So I'll add this black border to the card and then this kind of green background that like this King of Spades has, just to add a little color to it. Yeah. So that's it. Let me just close this out. And it's funny, like now that I did the Jack of Spades, like I really like the way the colors look. I like the kind of more desaturated feel that it has. And so I'll go back to the King and kind of desaturate it stuff and add that kind of texture that I have on the Jack, just to kind of make those kind of cohesive. And like I said before, part of that, creating that method of, creating the image is really important to make it cohesive. And I actually haven't painted on these in like a week because I've been doing other stuff. And so I kind of lost that method. And so I was kind of finding it again here. And so now I kind of got it dialed into, I think. Make sure this is saved. Yeah, we're saved. Let me change my camera mode here. I can make my picture bigger. I want to leave the image up, but I want to make my picture a little bit bigger so I can talk to you fine people. Let me see. Okay. Good. And always, like I said, like this, I always want to zoom out, and that right there, and I want to put a playing card. I can put a playing card right here next to it. And I always put a playing card up on the screen to make sure that I'm always checking the size. And I am. Because I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. And that's the size of a playing card. So let me answer a few questions. David asks, is each court card going to have a different color background shading? Most likely what it'll be, and what I usually do, is each suit will have a different kind of colored theme. So like that King of Spades you saw, the Spades may have that green, that kind of green background, and then like the hearts maybe have a different color. I'll probably break up the suits that way and use that. And they also had like a green outline around the border. I'll probably use a different kind of color scheme in the background as well to differentiate the suits. Hobbit mini deck. Oh my gosh, I hate mini decks. But if I ever did a mini deck, I feel like that Lord of the Rings, doing a Hobbit mini deck would be the one to do. Let's see. Let me see other questions here. Let me see if I've missed any questions. Paul Timmons asks, can you show those swatches for the shirts again? Oh, I don't have those. I don't have the patterns with me right here readily available, if that's what you're asking. The shirts that I showed once. And that's kind of time. I mean, I don't try to talk about stuff that's like time specific on the YouTube lives because somebody may come 5 years from now. I try to kind of keep it to the questions about the piece of art. That's why I kind of stay away from like release dates and stuff like that, because I don't want somebody coming in 5 years from now and asking, okay, I'm sorry, Paul, I'm sorry. Don't give me a sad face. Let's see here. I'll take a few more questions. I like this. There's things about this new setup I got that I like, but there's also things that I need to fix because there was some parts that were kind of hard. What is your artistic plan for the Christmas Carol deck? I have no idea. It'll probably be something. It'll probably be something that is graphic with black line because just I like black line. I saw there's this guy. Let me see. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let me see. There's a guy that I've been seeing his work, and I really like his stuff. And he's like this. He does like these wood cuts. Do I have anything saved on my Pinterest page? I do not know. Excuse me. Maybe under here I do. Let's see. No. I follow him on Instagram, but it's like this really cool graphic woodcut look. That's just, I think, amazing. But the Christmas deck, and that's what I've been thinking about for the Christmas deck, is this kind of really cool woodcut look. But I don't know yet because the Christmas deck is, I'm working on October and November now. But that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I just haven't thought about it enough because I'm not there yet. So sorry. Let me go back to the questions here. Robert Wright says, last week you talked about USPC locking down the tally hos right before the sale. Now that Cartamundi owns them, do you think they will open them back up and possibly the bees? Well, they've always had the bees locked down. And interestingly enough, they're only locked down in the United States. They're not locked down in like Asia, the bees specifically. I don't know what they're going to do with the tally hos, but I got to be real honest with you. I'm going to shoot straight with you. And I kind of talked about this a little bit when I kind of explained the reasoning behind why we canceled the bicycle subscription. I mean, I like tally hos, and they have a special place in my heart because of the tally ho series that I did. I like bicycles, but you know what? I work so hard to build my own brand that the more and more my brand gets built and the more and more I work, the more and more work, sweat, blood, and tears I put into my own brand, the less and less I want to build up somebody else's brand and have to pay for it. If I'm going to have to pay for it, I might as well build my own brand and not somebody else's. So the more time that goes by, the less I want to do branded decks like tally ho decks and bicycle decks because, and I mentioned this when I talked about the bicycle subscription, the majority of the people that come to my website and the customers that are buying my products, the majority, is not a blanket statement, but the majority of those people are coming to buy King's Wild decks like this, this overbite deck that have unique themed custom court cards. Now I could definitely make a unique court card bicycle or tally ho deck, but I don't want to do the extra work for somebody else's brand. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. I know it sounds selfish, but I work really hard to build my brand, and I want to keep doing that. Let's see here. All right, let's see. Any more questions? I know that we got a delay because I forgot to turn off the latency thing. So I'm just making sure that The signal goes to space and back. I don't see any other questions. All right. Let me change this mode. There we go. So anyways, that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. I love this style of painting. It's super relaxing. I don't have to like it's very different than it's very different than my really tight drawing. So it's a lot looser. It's a lot easier to do. It's really relaxing. B-Dog asks, are you still going to be using United States Playing Card Company when they ramp up printing? Yes, I will. I will be using United States Playing Card Company again when they get back up and going. I'm not going to use them exclusively, only because they can't do certain things that I like to do sometimes. But I will be using them. Is the drawing for the Halloween deck? Yes, Kelvin. This drawing is for the Halloween deck Overbite. Yes. Thanks everybody for coming. It's about 10:30, so we've been going for an hour and a half. Excuse me. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I always like doing these. I think this is like the 4th or 5th week, so we're on a good roll here, and we're going to keep going. I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys stay safe. Let's see. Evie wants to say something. Hey, Evie. Well, I don't know who you are, Evie, from Evie, but if you sent me an email, what you should do, Evie, is if you want to get a response, send an email to support@kingswildproject.com. And my crew, that's specifically their job is to make sure people's emails get answered. If you want to get an answer, email support@kingswildproject.com, and they'll get you hooked up with whatever you need. Pirate theme deck. I am going to do a pirate theme deck hopefully in the future. I talked a little bit about this on that show, Decking Around. It was crazy. I don't know if you guys watched that show or that YouTube, but I was on there. We started at 8 o'clock, and we talked about playing cards for 6 hours. It was off the hook, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun, but we talked about all kinds of different things, and Pirate Deck was one of them. I want to do a Pirate Deck. I love literature. I love theme decks. I love, I want to do like a Treasure Island or a those types of things. But the problem with old decks like that are historic literature and types of stuff is there's just never enough female characters to make 4 queens. There's usually never enough female, major enough characters that are female to make good queen characters, and that's always the problem. Let's see, Robert. Let's see. Thank you. I haven't announced the iPad winner. We'll probably do that tomorrow. We're gonna be picking that tonight and tomorrow morning. Whoever won the iPad for this month, we had a great turnout from our little May giveaway thing, and we're gonna do something equally cool next month. Let's see. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Monster character for Pirate Deck. Well, all right. Yeah, I would like to do like Hamlet, but even Hamlet has like one female character. Was it the mom or something? I can't remember. That's it. I hope you guys have a great week. You guys stay safe in this crazy world that we have these days. Stay safe. Take care of the ones you love. We got lots of great stuff coming out. Just be on the lookout. I love you guys coming and spending time with me and hanging out while I'm playing cards for a living. And I couldn't be happier with what I do, and I love doing it. So thanks a lot, guys. You have a great week. I will see you guys next Sunday. See you.